You're going to need a bigger scalpel, Doctor. Oh, there, big guy. We're just getting started. Now, if you don't like the sight of blood, you might want to close your eyes.
It is okay, Ratchet. You can come in. It is safe inside this door.
Oh hey, it's time for some of that weird shit. So, Ratchet's hallucinating rather vividly because he is all doped up on some sort of alien drug substance we have no idea what is. And you can see here we have some new armor parts that we won from minigames. And we can use those to enhance Ratchet's damage reduction. You know, enhanced damage reduction sounds a little weird to say, but I guess that's technically what we're doing. Anyway, we mixed and matched our armor parts, so now we're ready to go. I know a lot of people have issues with the border in this level. They think it's kind of distracting and disorienting. I actually quite like the border. With this level, I like the way the colors bleed into it. But I could understand it bothering someone. There are some enemy types unique to this level. There are flying syringe bats and some special enemy type we'll see quite later. We can also make use of our normal gadgets and mechanics in this level, though some of them do unexpected things. For example, we'll water this mimic plant and plant it as we normally do, but it will become a special kind of plant that we don't get anywhere else. The rare cork plant. And the cork plant turns into swing shot targets. That is the function of the cork plant. You know, Ratchet sure thinks about Captain Quark a lot. I'm not gonna theorize on what that means about his mental state, but he sure does think about Captain Quark a lot. Anyway, these giant eyeballs with red lights. They seem to have the capacity to kill you if they look directly at you for too long, but I've never been able to figure out what exactly triggers the death while they're looking at you. Maybe it's when the borders of the screen turn all red. Back when I first played this game on the PSP, this is kind of what sold me on it. What made me want to keep playing it to the finish was this level. Because this is just so weird. And if the developers could come up with weird shit like this, I wanted to see what other weird shit they had in store. Nothing else this weird, mind you, but things that are better. There are better levels than this one. Not as weird, but better. There are some creative platforming hazards and mechanics in this level that I wouldn't quite put on par with later levels, but the atmosphere is half of the fun here. Alright, it's time for the second unique enemy type of this level. If we get rid of these syringe bats, it's Dr. Quark, and he throws chainsaws at us. We simply need to strafe left or right to avoid them as they go forward at us. They're not particularly hard attacks to dodge. Mostly, they're only challenging when you have very limited room to move, or there are multiple Quarks throwing multiple chainsaws at you from different angles. I do appreciate the inclusion of giant eyeballs instead of normal death searchlights, but at the same time, why giant eyeballs? I get they're going for a trippy aesthetic, but couldn't it have been something more Ratchet and Clanky? This is really cool. These chainsaws chop up the platform, and then different Dr. Quarks appear on the slices of platform. It's still not particularly hard to dodge the Dr. Quark chainsaws, but you do have to be careful not to fall into the pits between platforms while you're strafing, because that is a legitimate concern, especially in the PSP version. It's not as bad here. Oh cool, our lacerator has reached full capacity, and now there are 2 of them. That's nice and everything, but the lacerators still aren't quite at full firepower. We still need to buy the double barrel mod for them, which will be 4 barrels in total, because there are 2 lacerators. So that'll be quite damaging for a while, but toward the end game it won't be enough by itself. Already mentioned the swing shot platforming. Very simple, very forgiving, about on par with the swing shot platforming in Up Your Arsenal. This section can be tough. if you're not patient, but if you just wait for the eyeballs to start turning before you run through, you'll be fine. I died here a lot because I didn't understand how the eyeballs worked at first, and I still kind of don't.
Ratchet! Ratchet! Come on, Ratchet, wake up! You must wake up. There is still so much to do. I knew something was odd about that Luna girl. This is all my fault.
Not to interrupt your pity party, Clank, but how is this your fault? How is any of this your fault? Did I miss something? Because I don't think either you or Ratchet are really at fault here. I get that you're trying to add some drama to a situation that's kind of missing drama, at least personal drama. By the way, the closer we get to this mirror, the closer these syringe bats get to flying out of said mirror. And if we shatter the mirror, more syringe bats appear. Really trippy visual. Really nice, too. Definitely took me by surprise the first time I played the game. Freaked me out a little bit. This whole level freaked me out a little bit the first time I played this game. Not so much now. I have a very low tolerance for horror things, but even I don't think this level's all that bad. Mostly because I consider it more wacky than creepy, especially in context with the really bad story that has a strange tone that's just all over the place. But yeah, if someone could help me out here, I can't imagine how Clank arrived at the conclusion that any of this was his fault. So if someone could help me with that, maybe there's something I missed, but I don't really think this is anyone's fault. Here we're going to fight Dr. Quark in his best element when we have very limited room to dodge. Fortunately, we can kill him very quickly with our double lacerator. So it's just a matter of finding him and locking on in time. I won't deny that this whole level must have taken quite a bit of coordination and creativity on the part of the developers. Because it's one thing to have an idea like, oh, Ratchet has a drug-addled trip through his mind while he's on the operation table. You know, it's fine to have that idea, anyone can have that idea. But actually putting it into effect, that's something else entirely. So I applaud them for actually going so far as to put the idea into action. Because I imagine it was kind of hard to sell that. Or maybe this is one of those weird situations where absolutely everybody involved in the development process just agreed. Everybody agreed it was a good idea to have a weird trippy level with a strange filter where you fight Dr. Quarks. And I think it's important to appreciate how hard it is to pull off weird shit like this when you're working for a company as big as Sony, and you have these really strict deadlines, and you're working with a well-established franchise. But they went and did this anyway. Then again, high-impact games seem to have been founded specifically to make this game, so maybe Sony had a lot of faith in the developers. I don't know exactly who the people are that were involved in this development studio are, and what connection they had with Sony before this development studio was started. So maybe they built up quite a bit of goodwill. You can hide behind the Clank parts if you're having issue dodging the Dr. Quark chainsaws, but I don't think they're that hard to strafe around. High-impact games also made Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier, and Secret Agent Clank, so it feels like they were specifically made to do spin-offs of Sony's really popular platforming franchises. Unfortunately, they were too late to make Daxter. You know, I never did get around to actually playing The Lost Frontier, so I kind of wonder how it turned out. I know it came out on the PSP and PS2 simultaneously, but I kind of wonder which version was the primary version, so to speak, which one was considered first. I'm going to guess the PSP version based on the developer's history, and from what I've heard about the game, it seems like it wasn't made with the PS2's limitations in mind. Like they could have done more with the world and the sound and visual design than they actually did. For the PS2, I mean. I also wonder if the PS2 version looks better, because the PS2 version of Size Matters definitely looks better than the PSP version, But since the PSP and PS2 version of The Lost Frontier came out at the same time, maybe they look nearly identical. They were in development in tandem, after all. It kind of feels weird to talk about developers dedicated to making spin-offs of really popular franchises. Like, size matters is probably the biggest part of High Impact Games' legacy. I mean, I don't know how anyone felt about Secret Agent Clank. I've never heard anyone say anything about the Secret Agent Clank video game, but that being said, I remember there being quite a bit of hype and positive reception in Size Matters' case. For this part of the level, we just have to survive Giant Clank until the game decides that we've survived long enough. Giant Clank has a few attacks, none are very threatening. He can create a shockwave of butterflies, we can just jump over the butterflies. He can throw grenades made of butterflies, we just walk to the left to avoid those. It's really nothing to be concerned about. Obviously, we do want to stay as far away from him as possible because if he steps on us, that will hurt quite a lot, and we will die shortly if that happens. So let's try to keep our distance. There are a couple of times you could be in danger of actually running off the platform, but you can easily readjust yourself to keep walking in a circle around him. This is a very lenient boss, if you want to call it a boss. It's mostly just for spectacle's sake, I think, because there's not really any fighting going on. The attacks aren't hard to dodge, and the platforming is very minimal. So I think it's just supposed to look cool. Which I guess it does, this is alright. People like Giant Clank. I'm a little upset this wasn't a giant quark instead, to keep with the theme of Ratchet thinking way too much about quark. But I guess things can't be perfect. This game is a good example of things not being perfect, even though I really like this level and don't really have anything bad to say about it.
You must wake up. There is still so much to do. I knew something was odd about that Luna girl. This is all my fault.
Hey, it wasn't your fault. I'm just too stubborn sometimes.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you're standing right here.